So yeah, I woke up this morning and said, let's do call and response with this painting. Because I've done call and response quite a bit when I write collaboratively with people. I think I consciously kind of coined it as a term when Steve Dansiger, my co-author, and I wrote EMDR Therapy and Mindfulness for Trauma-Focused Care. And he was in LA, I was in Ohio, and wherever else I go. And we were talking about how do we write this book together, especially when we had experienced so much what we call riffing, just being able to like sit and exchange ideas.
Well, riffing is, think of it improvisation, think of free association, think of jazz, think of trying to, or jazz hands, think of creating. The act of creating, the act of allowing the possibility of that which it is you're trying to say, kind of channeling through.
And working at a distance, we developed this call and response method where I would write something, he would write something. We had a general plan of who would be responsible for what in terms of writing the book, but it ended up being so amazing. Anytime anyone else has wanted to write collaboratively with me, I've done a couple articles with collaborators since then, I've suggested call and response. And I like it because we talk about mindfulness as being this art of responding to stress instead of reacting to stress, and that's what it's about. So I said to Michelle this morning as we were here in these few days of art process, wouldn't it be cool if we tried it with the painting?
That's inspiring. We're riffing now, aren't we?
We are riffing.
Yes.
Get Danziger into this.
I kept thinking while we were working it was like a painting in a relationship, which is something I've never done before. So I would say that I'm actually still reeling from it because it was so emotional. There were a couple times where I felt so connected to the process and to just painting and using the expression, getting it out. It was so beautiful. You would do something and then I would be like, oh, I know what I need to do, or I know what I want to do, and it actually kept me out of my head even more. It was like it kept me grounded in the process because you were there with me. So and it also, it was interesting. It was almost like non-codependent training because it was really interesting to think, okay, Jamie seems really invested in that little spot over there, but I really feel like I'm supposed to paint it black. Mm-hmm. And it was so great just to let each other do what we needed to do whenever we needed to do it. So the investment in it is the relationship and the process and the connection that occurred while we were painting it too. It's the energy of our connection was there. It's really like nothing I've ever done before.
Yeah, and I think at some point early on, we had just kind of said, let's call and response this. So how are you remembering the call and responseness of how we wrote the book?
Well, I'm remembering how we sort of structured it. I think the reason why we didn't have to talk so much during it is because we structured it up front.
During the riffing.
During the riffing. And so part of the riffing was the construction of this call and response, which was basically, in a sense, divvying up the material to wherever it skewed a little further towards either one of us. Mm-hmm. We were in charge of that material, with the insinuation being that we would then send that which we had created to the other. Mm-hmm. For tuning, not even, I won't call it editing.
Yeah.
I'll call it the response to the call.
I've always loved the idea of call and response in singing, and as a collaborative writing endeavor, it really struck me as something special.
It created this new voice, right? And so I think being able to not see things as either or, it's part of our both and thing. Mm-hmm. is that we brought all of ourselves to that which we were the first person to touch fingers to a keyboard, but it wasn't like ownership and then here, do something with this. It was this third voice.
And being just something about being connected and watching what you were doing and responding to it.
And I learned so much from you. Any painting I've done has been completely trial and error, experimenting, going with things. And I learned so much from you today watching your process and being with you in your process about taking risks.
And it's really hard because our mind, the ego, goes, ooh, I really love this little spot. And I'm not going to protect that spot. And then it's like, but then something happens where you go, oh my God, I'm supposed to do something else with that. And when you're in that process, you can almost try to not do what you're supposed to be doing with the painting, and it sort of stifles the process. And every time I've risked it, Jamie, it always turns out the way it's meant to be. And not because I figured it out, but because I let go. It shimmers. It really does.